Welcome to Protea Conversations, the podcast where leadership in business and accounting isn't just discussed, it's explored. I'm your host, Zane Stevens, and thank you for joining me as we delve into the minds of some of the most influential leaders in the industry. Our journey is one of discovery, from unraveling the unique stories that shaped our guests' careers to the invaluable advice that fueled their success. We are here to provide you with simple, actionable advice to accelerate your career and personal growth. Whether you're a budding professional or a seasoned executive, these conversations are designed to offer insight and perspectives that resonate with everyone. So tune in, engage, and be inspired as we build better leaders together. Welcome to Protea Conversations. Today, I'm joined by Dominic Piscopo, a CPA with a unique blend of entrepreneurship and enterprise in the accounting industry. Dominic is a founder of BigFourTransparency.com, a pioneering platform dedicated to bringing salary transparency to the accounting field. Through his work, he has empowered hundreds of thousands of CPAs with access to essential salary data and career opportunities. Currently, Dominic works as an FP&A at Rewind, where he plays a crucial role in supporting strategic decisions and enhancing financial health. His insight helps shape the efficiency and effectiveness of the tech sector. He also channels his passion for accounting through Big Four Transparency podcast, engaging with professionals to uncover trends, challenges, and opportunities within the industry. Today, explore Dominic's journey, the impact of transparency in the professional space, and his advice for CPAs navigating today's job market. Dominic, welcome to the show.
Hi, Zane. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to just be able to spend a little bit of time with you. I feel like we've become pretty good LinkedIn buddies, which is always nice.
Absolutely.
A place where a lot of sort of friendships get started, and I really enjoy your content. Obviously, you've got an amazing podcast, great guests. Might know one of them pretty personally, and I thought he was pretty insightful. And it's just great to see what you're sort of able to extract out of people, which is really intriguing. And I think it's super helpful to all the professionals out there.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Zane. Yeah, I really wanted to kind of go in there with just like a curious novice sort of mindset and just, see what I could learn, because I found like my time in public accounting, I decided pretty quick that it wasn't for me. And then I just completely closed that door. And then having built Big Four Transparency, I got kind of dragged back into that world a little bit. And I'm seeing like some incredible people and some people who've really made it work for them. So this, like, while I'm getting to do this, podcast, and obviously some of it is for brand growth and recognition for Big Four Transparency, at the same time, like, I'm actually really curious about what's out there. And like, I see these people starting firms, like for yourself, like in the wine industry. That's so interesting. Just because of like the relationships you get to build. And it's just this whole entire world that I found that I had written off that I'm kind of now realizing there's some really, really cool people in. It's a huge opportunity to be able to be, build out the brand a little bit and be a little bit self-serving, where I'm just having conversations with people that I want to learn from. So
really interesting. So you mentioned there you started in public accounting and it wasn't for you, but I mean, you gave it a good go, right? It wasn't a short spell. You were there for nearly 4 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, that includes kind of co-op time. So in terms of actual like working there, so I guess internship in Canada, in terms of actually having worked there, I did probably just under 3 years of time there. And yeah, like I gave it a good go. I wasn't right off the bat hating it. Like there was some structural problems with, how roles are created and how rigid things are at the firms that like made it pretty obvious for me once I was full-time that this wasn't going to work out. But I really talk about this a lot. Like, I think I got given the best possible situation, which made me last a lot longer. Like, I had a great coach. I had a fantastic partner at the firm I was working at. And I got to get staffed on some of the best like tax projects and stuff like that. So yeah, like I didn't immediately write it off. It was just very early on, I realized that there were these like frustrations that were just not going to go away. And in fact, they would probably just get amplified as time went by. And so I decided to call that quits. So yeah.
And how does the whole process work? You obviously studied accounting and then you decided to go into public accounting in Canada. Back in South Africa, the way it works is you sort of head off to your public accounting firm, do 3 years in audit, and you get signed off. And once you pass your exams, you're a chartered accountant. Is there something similar like that in Canada, or is it more in line with the US model where it's sort of pick and choose where you want to spend your time?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. So basically for us, I mean, I guess the exams are different. I basically rushed my whole CPA exam process because I wanted to fit into this legacy process that they were closing the door on. So I got to be part of the last cohort where you could challenge the exams.
Okay.
So instead of doing these like modules where there'd be like projects, deliverables, and then an exam, you could say, I don't need all of that. I don't need the course. I don't need that. Let me just write the final exam, basically. But to squish into that, because they were closing the door with a certain deadline, I actually had to basically condense my CPA process. In Canada, you'd normally do it over about a year and a half. I had to do it in about 8 months. And there were 4 or 5 people from my cohort who did the same as me. So I wrote 2 challenge exams at the same time as my finals of as my last semester of university.
Wow.
And then I wrote 2 more during busy season 2 months later. And then I wrote the actual exam 4 months after that, something like that. So not something I really recommend, but then you still need 30 months of practical experience. So by the time I had written the CPA exam, I had just around 18 months. So I stuck around for another year. I got my 30 months in a firm. You can get the rest of your practical experience outside of a firm as well, but there's a lot of reporting requirements. And by the time that I had like decided I was leaving, I was probably already at 2 years. And I'm like, do I just stick it out for this extra 6 months, or do I really give myself that whole headache? So I just stuck it out and I think I probably got 30 and a half months by the time I left. So
Well, really intriguing. I mean, in South Africa, if you move, you basically get a penalty. They're like, hey, you need 6 more months if you want to change. So that sort of forces people to stay. I think it's more the firms that got together and like, how do we protect ourselves from people jumping if they don't like it? We'll issue them a penalty. But what my biggest takeaway from that is that you're extremely smart if you're able to squeeze all those CPA exams. And at the same time, really not the smartest person around.
yeah, I've always been, this sounds super weird to explain to people. Some people get it, some people don't. I've been very good at like optimizing the amount of effort that I should be putting in for something. Pretty early in my university career, I kind of realized that like if I got more than like an 8.0, so like 80%, there was really like diminishing returns. So I graduated with basically almost exactly an 8.0. I got the magna cum laude designation, and I have a ton of colleagues and classmates who worked a hell of a lot harder than I did. And they got an 8.9, and we had the exact same job. We got the exact same designation on our degree. So I've always been kind of good at like understanding where my efforts will be rewarded and where they won't be. So I think for kind of putting all these exams together and whatnot, like I knew like, okay, my final exams, like I'm good for like university. So I really didn't study very hard for those, and I mostly just prepped for the CPA. So I've like my sister's a doctor, and she was always like the really like studious one, the like really good student and all that. And I was really kind of like, show me the reward first, and I will decide if I kind of feel like putting in the effort. And so anyways, I've been good at that. So I really kind of optimized around that when I was doing my CPA exam prep, which worked out. So yeah.
No, I totally get that. If you ask my mom, she's never seen me study in my life before. So,
Yeah.
I got through it all. I just did what I needed to make sure I passed.
Yeah, exactly.
So just over 3 years at Deloitte. Tax is always interesting for me. I've never spent any time in that. I mean, I'm assuming that wasn't quite the passion.
Honestly, like weirdly, I actually really liked a lot of the projects that I worked on. So first of all, I very like adamantly tried to fight back against just like doing T1s and T2s, which is like the corporate and personal returns, it'd be like 1040s and stuff like that. I really, really fought against that and just kind of did the bare minimum of those that I needed to politically to not create enemies. Yep. And other than that, I worked on a lot of kind of like M&A deals. So I got to work on like, I think the largest M&A deal ever in my city. When there were kind of new trends, like when weed companies started IPOing, I got involved in that. I did like some reverse takeovers and stuff like that. And I really tried to focus on like what was the real like high value tax work. When blockchain became like the big trend, I was like, I think I was the only analyst on like the Canadian blockchain team. Like it was all a bunch of managers, and I was like, no, like I'm your guy. Like bring me in all your projects. Like I'll handle that. Um, and so I did actually really like the work I was doing. I will say like the reason it didn't work out for me, I think, was again very much like firm structure where I mean, first of all, compensation. We'll start there, I guess. In Canada, it's come a long way, but like I still think compensation for accounting professionals is very, very low in your first like 4 or 5 years of your career. And then it starts to kind of make sense. I'm in Ottawa, which is like a real government town. And a lot of kind of the general path is a lot of people go and work for government. And I was working at Deloitte, and everyone who'd gone for government was working way less than me and making like $20,000 a year more than me. And I had a really hard time overcoming that. And I had a really hard time like having the long view because I didn't have the data that I have now kind of created with Big Four transparency. And we as a community have created, thanks to everyone kind of contributing to that. I didn't have that. And it was really hard for me to understand, like, what does the upside look like here? And meanwhile, at the same time, like, I was working in nightlife. So, like, every Friday, I would basically work 9 to 5:30 at Deloitte and then 5:30 to 2:30 in the morning at a bar. And in that one bar shift on Friday night, I would make probably more than half of what I made in my entire week. Um,
Wow.
so that was very frustrating to me. And I had a lot of kind of issues around comp there. And again, like I had always picked paths and jobs through university where I was very, very well paid for what I did. And so this was like a real like slap in the face with me where I was like, hey, like every side job I've done has paid me more than this. So that was like a really hard thing for me to overcome, particularly because again, like I didn't have these things, like I wasn't connected, I wasn't plugged into the industry. So I didn't know like that there's a future or like, hey, just hang on. And in 8 years or 10 years or whatever, like this is what comp will look like. And I could have some of those discussions, but it wasn't great. And honestly, like my coach, who was like a superstar at Deloitte at the time as well, he was working more than anyone. And like he was making okay money. And we had some conversations, but I was like, dude, like this is not worth it for the work that you're doing either. And I thought that that was kind of it. He's partner now. Like, I'm sure he's doing great. I'm sure it's all paid off. But at the time, like, that was really a sticking point for me where I was like, this is not worth the effort I'm putting in, and I could do way better elsewhere. I think I was also always very entrepreneurial, and I maybe didn't know it yet. So I've always felt a little bit like shackled when I'm in a role. Like, it always feels like not quite right. And so that's where the structural issues come into play with how these firms are is things are very, very rigid, right? You're a tax analyst, so we need you to bill so many hours preparing tax returns. I hated doing tax returns. I wanted to be on these cool projects. Okay, that kind of worked. And then I started getting really into business development. So I took the initiative to start hosting Product Hunt at our office. Like I was being sent to a lot of conferences, and like I was actually starting to develop legitimate client relationships. And the problem was that wouldn't be recognized as part of my role for like another 6 years by the time I left. Like there was no category where they could put this work where it would be recognized as anything other than admin time. Um, and I talked with the partner, and he like really tried to go to bat for me. But then like when it came down to it every year, it was like, here's your billable hours. You know, the other guy from your cohort billed 12% more than you. Like you're roughly on target. Why aren't you any higher? And I was like, well, I worked on every speculative project where it wasn't clear cut. Like sometimes we had to write off the deal, like we wouldn't win it yet. I was doing a lot of pitches, like working on decks for work that we were trying to win and doing all this biz dev work, and it wasn't being recognized. Plus, at the same time, like my revenue metrics were very, very high because when I was on the blockchain tax team, like my recovery rate was like over 100% on my time versus normally it'd be like 70 or something like that for like an analyst level person. So very quickly, like I kind of realized if I want to do anything outside of like the basic job description here, this is not really going to work for me. Um, and so, yeah, actually, I'm very happy that I approached it the way I did. Like, I basically had these conversations with my coach and the partner. So I actually still like maintained a pretty good relationship with them. And I had started looking at other roles, and actually the partner ended up referring me to one of the clients who is a very well-known entrepreneur in our city and all that. And that didn't end up being the role for me either. But it was very much a testament to having those very honest and real conversations where I got to leave with those relationships very much intact. In fact, like they were really like advocating for me. And the partner was like, "Hey, like you're looking for an entrepreneurial job? I've got one for you." So it was a really good exit. Like we left very like kind of amicably, but yeah, that's kind of how I realized firms weren't for me. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I mean, one, I think it's amazing that you were able to get a partner and a coach in a big firm like Deloitte to actually support you, right? It's not
Yeah.
that common where you're like, hey, this is not for me, that they'll help you find something. Even
Yeah.
if you are somebody that, people look up to, have been very happy with the work, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do that. They're always stuck in their sort of silo vision, chargeable rates, let's, be as successful as like. I think a couple
Yeah.
of points that you brought up there, which is very interesting. One, you spoke about, hey, not having the data, couldn't understand what that would eventually look like in 8 to 10 years. But I guess one of the parts to challenge with that, yep, there is a big salary potentially at the end. But the problem is it's potentially. And a lot of the times, the ability to get that salary is not your decision. It's the
Yeah.
decision of other people. And it does become a bit of a political game. I know at my time at KPMG, there was a very good chance if I wanted to go that direction, I would have to definitely move departments and go to a group that would appreciate at that time, which I also didn't realize, my entrepreneurial spirit, because
Hmm.
in the silo that I was working in at that time, my approach to life was frowned upon, right? Because I was okay to jump the line and go do some work that didn't belong to me and it belonged to somebody of the next level. And people don't
Yeah.
like that, right? So you can easily get blocked by being what for me was called arrogance. But really, I was just wanting to try different opportunities. So that
Yeah.
that is a tricky part about the structure portion of it. The other part where they weren't recognizing some of the other stuff you were doing, I think that is one of those quiet things that the big firms don't tell you about. I was involved in a couple of different initiatives, also sort of mock recruiting people, actually recruiting people, as well as doing training. And that was seen as a nice extra, but it definitely sort of counted against you when they started looking at some of the other metrics because it was productive but non-chargeable time.
Yeah.
And as much as everybody said productivity was important, really what they were saying is they cared about the chargeability. Because I'm a workaholic, I had both, but that's not a good scenario for most people.
Yeah. Yeah, and like when you put your hand up to do those things, like everyone's cheering for you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you have to be careful kind of because it's on the other side of it where and like I don't actually remember exactly. I was either like on target or like off by like within 5%, right? But I'm like
Mm-hmm.
I've done 10 times the amount of other stuff to make up for it. But like I was just kind of like roughly there. But either way, even if you are on target, they compare you to your cohort and they're like, well, my cohort were all like 15% above target. And it's like, well, you're certainly not 15% above target. So yeah, that was very frustrating at the time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, at least you had the recoverability. I was happy to put up my hand and do all the junk key projects that nobody else wanted to be on, and you knew your recoverability going into that would be close to 5% on some of them. And
Yeah.
you're like, you're not even generating revenue. I'm like, I'm not the one who signed off on that original agreement. That was all you. Um,
Yeah.
but I guess I'll lie on that sword if that's what you want me to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate because I think they're really shooting themselves in the foot where like I've had some conversations with Andrea Davis, who used to kind of work at, in HR in like resource management at Baker Tilly. And we had some conversations and she really talks about like using the whole person and like, how do you get an understanding of like the total picture of what a person brings to work? And I think that was like a huge thing of what was missing for me. Is where I was like, listen, I bring in all this other stuff, but if it's going to come down to the chargeable hour, that's not going to work for me. So yeah.
Yeah, it's very true. These big firms old school structures, it really is not about what's best for the person that we've employed. It's what's best for us.
Yeah.
And that can sort of leave a bad taste. And I guess that's why people leave. But I get the problem as well is that they are set up in a structure to understand that it's sort of, we're going to throw everybody in the top of the funnel. We only need a few to fall through to the bottom anyway. So who cares?
Exactly. Like, it's part of the business model, and even when some people want to do better and do differently, like the larger the firm, the harder it is to steer that ship, right? So a number of years later, I'd had lunch with that partner, and he's like, hey, like, yeah, I was really hoping that you were telling me that like you wanted to come back. And I was like, no, like, honestly, man, like unless there was some role where I could do all of this stuff, like that would never happen, right? And he's like, yeah, I know, like, I understand. But like from the firm perspective, like that's just kind of the business model, right? Like, and even if he would have wanted to create that role, that he probably couldn't, right? So yeah, it's tricky.
Couldn't justify the numbers, right? There wouldn't be enough
Yeah.
top line or bottom line involved with that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why I'm super bullish on like the, honestly, like the people I've spoken to on my podcast, but like, people like you and, Brandon Hall and, those firms where it's like, I'm going to do things better and I'm going to try to, like a conversation I had with Brandon where he's like really pushing some people who have that spark in them to like basically be internet influencers in the space to win over clientele. And he's like, yeah, like I'll give you my playbook, I'll shout you out, I'll show you, I'll give you the resources. Like places like that will attract that kind of oddball talent where you go, okay, like I'm a pretty good accountant. Like I don't know if I was like a prodigy or any, like I'm just a normal, like I'm good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'm really interested in these other things. And I think these people will like start as there's more and more spotlight on these firms, I think it'll start kind of funneling. And like for you, like I think if outsourcing becomes a huge thing in South Africa, if like it kind of catches on more and more, I think for you who've been consistent from the get-go of like these are people, not resources, you're going to be really part of the team, you're not just a tool for our team to use, and you've had that consistent narrative, well, like where's top South African talent going to go, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a question of like it's happening more and more, but like shining more spotlight on these people. And I think that'll give really like very good alternatives to talent where they can go and thrive at these places. So yeah.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be a big shift. And I don't know if it was always just under the surface and COVID and working from home and people getting a better platform has opened it up a little bit more. But there definitely seems to be a massive change. And there's a lot of great examples out there. I mean, Brandon Hall is definitely one of the good examples out there, but even the people in the traditional CPA tax provider firm doing some really great stuff. So it's nice to see that change. I mean, when I started my company, I didn't realize that was different. I just knew it was different from what I was used to. But when you start thinking about people, it does make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sort of you went on from Deloitte, you moved on to a client as a financial controller, and you said that sort of didn't work out for you. Type of work, where it was, what happened there?
Yeah, that was another one of those where the juice was maybe just not worth the squeeze. Where like it was really cool. I got to see everything. Like I asked for an entrepreneurial role and I got an entrepreneurial role, but it was like too much where I didn't like own a meaningful stake of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I think if this was like a business I had been there for the inception of, and that's obviously asking too much, but like if I had been a co-founder, there would have been no problems.
Yep.
But I was a financial controller, in brackets a little bit, where it's like that was for sure title inflation to the max, but I was the only finance and accounting person here. I was also internally project managing the construction of new restaurants. So I was our internal project manager, and then I basically designed and implemented a whole new front-end POS system for a restaurant. So I had a lot of restaurant experience. And this is like a very well-known entrepreneur kind of in my area. And, he's exited a public company previously, and like it was like a very hot company to go work for. And yeah, it was just quite messy internally and very kind of like chaotic and all that. And, I'd get 8 phone calls on any given Sunday. Like it was pretty bad, but I did get to see like the ins and outs of absolutely everything. So I really just stayed for the full year because I wanted to see a project through, which was like this super wide scale POS implementation. But it was one of those things where like they needed a full-time controller and I had 50 hours a week of other work.
Yeah.
So it was really, really bad on that front. And again, like if this was like my own business, like if I owned, 15-20% of it, like no problem. Like I will run myself into the ground to like make this thing work. But it was just like, listen, I'm learning a lot, cool, but like I am just being run into the ground for very low compensation once again. And it's, kind of goes back to the beginning where I've always known like, should I put my energy into this or is this maybe just not worth it? And very quickly it hit a point where I was like, this is absolutely insane. Like, he'd have to double my salary for this to even quasi make sense. Right.
Yeah.
So that was, it was an experiment. It kind of allowed me to pivot because a lot of people worry about getting pigeonholed in tax.
Mm-hmm.
So this was like the full breadth of everything. So I could kind of spin this experience however I wanted. So it allowed me to pivot, which was good. Yeah, I would not do it again. Yeah.
Well, live and learn, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So while you were sort of finalizing that job, you founded Big Four Transparency.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Super weird timing to have created it, honestly, because I was like so deep underwater. But yeah, around that time, like I've always been entrepreneurial. Like and again, like I don't think I necessarily like knew it or knew what that was, but like I had run like a DJ business for like weddings in the past. Like working in nightlife, while not necessarily entrepreneurial, kind of has some elements of it. I went and helped manage the sales force for a buddy starting a window cleaning business, like all stuff like that. And I was always interested in it, but I had kind of never found my tribe for that world. And then I discovered actually podcasts was a huge turning point for me, I think. So I discovered My First Million, Indie Hackers. Like I binged through everything of that. And I started just like having fun trying stuff out. I started a Pocket Square business on Shopify that maybe broke even, maybe not, where I like partnered with some artists out of Europe I really liked and like made custom designs and stuff like that. And that fizzled out. And I was really just in this very like rapid learning phase. And so I discovered no code tools. I kind of like got into that community a little bit and it was sort of scratching my own itch, right? Like I was very frustrated with the lack of transparent data and ability to get that. And I spent a lot of time on Reddit and I saw there was constantly like every day there was a discussion about like, hey, what are people making? What's the compensation at this level? Like, I don't understand. Is any of this going to pay off? And so I just said, like, why don't we centralize these conversations and answer this once and for all? So I kind of threw together like a really hacky tool and I threw it up on Reddit and it went gangbusters. Like it went absolutely viral. It was crazy. People clearly like had been wanting this. It's like based off a Google sheet. And at one point, like I opened the Google sheet and there was like 150 people in it at the same time.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, cool. People like this. And so there was never necessarily a business there. In those early days, it was just like, this is a thing. Like I finally have traction on something. I'm really popular on the internet right now. I'm going to keep kind of building this, refining it. The data at the beginning was like just a dumpster fire. Like there were no restrictions on what you could input. Like it was a mess. So I actually ended up scrapping a lot of that early data. And so I cleaned it all up. Like I made the website a little bit more professional. And then I just kind of kept at it, kept improving it like little bit by bit for like 6 or 12 months, something like that. And yeah, like it was consistent. Like people kept coming to the website. The traffic was super, super high. And so listening to Indie Hackers, if any of your followers are listening to that, it's a bit of a weird Venn diagram between accountants and people who listen to Indie Hackers. But anyways, a lot of people on there talk about making a job board. So I built a job board that did okay, honestly. Like at one point I was making maybe close to $1,000 a month. And then I went on vacation, got sick, got COVID, and like lost all my customers because job board customers stay for like 2 months and then they fill the job and they leave.
Yeah.
So I was really, really sick for like a couple weeks, and like this business basically went to zero. And I was like, okay, job board doesn't work. And so as I was figuring it out, I created a newsletter where I did deep dives on the data because there's some restriction on the data where like you can view it all for free, you can do whatever you want, but it's not downloadable. People kept trying to like spin off my website into like their own businesses, and they would like charge gated access to this data and whatever. And I was like, okay, this belongs to this website. I'm going to create it so you can browse the data, get what you need from it while not downloading it. And so, yeah, I created a newsletter where I would do in-depth data analytics, and that's still going. And then, yeah, I started having some conversations with people, and I realized that like, every once in a while, someone would like DM me on Twitter, or I'd see something and it'd be like, hey, let's have a talk and see how we can work this out. Mm-hmm. And then this year, actually, I started taking that a lot more seriously. And it's something that I'm like really, really making a run at. You know, I've been like to a point where like I'm doing some cold calls every once in a while. And like I've got quite a few demos booked for this week. And I'm realizing like firms really need help with this, because in the market right now, like there's these non-specialized accounting providers who don't understand like accounting is a very unique industry, and they're trying to apply these like general rules to it. And like the information that they're giving companies and like firms is just flat out not good. And then there are good providers, like Mercer has been doing it forever. They'd be doing like these firm surveys and stuff like that. But that's like $25,000 a year, to my understanding. Don't fully quote me on that. And like typically is like an annual report, and it comes like months into the next year. So I'm like, this is now not timely data. And it's super expensive. So most small firms aren't getting it. Mm-hmm. And then there's like the recruiter like data where they'll do like a salary guide. And like if you just take 2 seconds to think of the incentive system recruiters have in place, yeah, you'll know why you can't rely on those salary guides. And so I just really saw like an opportunity here. And this is like something I'm like really pursuing like full force right now. And so that's kind of where the website's at now. And I launched a podcast at the same time, just sort of like A, help the brand get out there, but B, like meet people in the industry. Mm-hmm. Because I realized like there was really this like little insiders club, and I was very much on the outside. And so getting to know people kind of like has really helped do that. And I encourage anyone, like if you're trying to like break into a certain world, like doing a podcast is such a key to entering like into a market. Like if you ask someone who's busy and like has any kind of reputation to pick their brain, like they probably get asked that twice a week. It's super annoying. They don't understand why. But if you want to have a conversation with them on a podcast, like this probably helps their personal brand. And then at the same time, like they probably get content that they can share. So like you're really doing them a service, but like you now have an hour of access to this person to get to know them, to learn everything from them. And like, who knows, like if you hit it off, they might introduce you to other interesting people. Right. So yep. I really recommend podcasting to people as like a means to kind of entering into a world. It's been incredible. So, yeah.
Well, that helps that you've got an absolutely amazing podcast. So that makes it a little bit easier.
Good guests like you make it a lot easier. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course. A couple of points from that, right? Like I get the point with the sort of bad data situation. I know in the wine industry, they used to have this like annual like salary survey. They would like publish like salaries out there. And the biggest fault, and I'd always be like, this is absolute garbage. And people would hold it to like, this is scripture. We got to trust it. But it's like, I can go to 5 different wineries right now and ask them for the job description of their controller, and all 5 will be totally different.
Exactly.
So we're getting a bunch of totally mixed information, because the one who's been called a controller is a glorified bookkeeper, and the other one, they're a CFO. But they're all being, given the same title, and we've got a big, vast difference in terms of salaries. And it's just bad quality information. And if you're trusting, and this was like done by I don't know, like a publishing company as well. So their incentive was just to get clicks, right? Like that's all they care about. Like they didn't care who it was hurting along the way. So how do you sort of go about sort of making that not be an issue on your guys' side?
Yeah. I mean, the critical mass of data is huge, and like I'm incredibly lucky to have gotten the buy-in from the community to the extent I did, and like when I did.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you have a large enough amount of data, like it's pretty easy to do like some statistical analysis and like eliminate outliers. And you can use things like using percentiles rather than averages. And it really cleans up kind of the output from this data. And so like at this point, I have, 15,500 individual records displayed on the website that I kind of use in this analysis. There's probably closer to 17,000 actual submissions. But like I said, a lot of the early ones got scrapped. And on an ongoing basis, like I'm removing data points that like either, it looks like someone fat fingered it, like, they probably meant to say 120,000. They wrote 12,000. I'm not 100% sure they mean 120,000. So I'm just going to remove the data point.
Yeah.
And like things that like fall too far outside of a range. And because there is so much data that's been collected for so long, like it's very easy to kind of be like, okay, this is like improbable to be like a real entry. And so you can just remove that. And again, just inherently by using percentiles, that kind of cleans that up. And sort of like the deal I have with the accounting community is I'm like, and people have broken this contract so many times where there have been other spreadsheets circulated with compensation data, and people like invariably like it's so dumb that they do this, but they'll paywall it, or they'll like try to sell it to someone, and they'll like pull it away from the community. And like at this point, like I've spent 3 years proving myself that like you will never lose access to being able to view this data. Right? You might not be able to do like the in-depth analytics or whatever that you want, but like you can enter your city, your level, the stream that you're working for, and you will see everything there is to see. And the trade-off is like, if you want this tool to continue being awesome, like we need buy-in from the community. We need people to submit responses, right? And a lot of them don't. Realistically, like I've had about 250,000 people come to the website, and I'm sitting at 15,000 submissions, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like enough people recognize and want to be a part of this, that you end up with like this very large resource. How do we make sure it's good data? I mean, first of all, it's first party data. So this isn't like a game of telephone. This is people submitting it, and there's so much of it that you can pretty easily analyze it. So that's kind of where that stands. Yeah.
And sort of what does your coverage look like in terms of how much of the country are you covered? What does that look like
all
at this
over
point?
the place? There's honestly like pretty much nowhere in North America that like you could look up that like won't have data. And like what's nice is like if it just so happens that like the place you're looking for has not enough responses to get done what you're looking to get done, or like when I'm working with client firms, what I really recommend is doing like a basket of cities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like a baseline of what I do is I do like very high cost of living cities, and then USA excluding very high cost of living cities. And that's like the topmost layer of the analysis you could do. But like, you'll have percentiles for very high cost of living. So like New York, Boston, Seattle, most of California, like all of that. And then you'll have a separate query for like excluding that. And then you can kind of compare the two. But you can really get like super specific. You can go like, I hire in Dallas, Fort Worth, several other similar cost of living cities within Texas. It's like, well, those are pretty populous cities. You can just pick those and get all the data for those. You'll probably have hundreds and hundreds of responses, right? So at this point, like there's pretty much nowhere that like won't have some data, which is super nice.
That's incredible. It's amazing that people are able to go out there. It just shows that people want to share information. People want good information out there.
It's very intriguing. It's done completely anonymously, which is like the nice thing as well, right? Like I built the whole system so that the test was that like if someone offered me $1 million to like hunt down a given submission, I can't. Like
Yep.
I don't know how. Because it's basically built in a way where like the flow, like all the entries where it would be tagged, like whose Google account or whatever it comes through, because the automation is all like registered under my name from like the software builder and everything, every single thing gets tagged as an entry by me. So there's literally no way to go around. So that was like where like Glassdoor got in trouble recently for like basically revealing a bunch of like what was thought to be confidential data. I'm like, that information literally does not even exist here. Which is like really what you're kind of looking for, because like
Yep.
there's no trace. And a couple times a month I'll get an email where like someone will be like, hey, I made an entry for like a small firm. I identified myself as like an Asian female. Like, can you please remove it? Or like, can you remove the name of the firm or something like that? Right.
Yep.
Because like, again, like if you're in like a small city and it's mostly like, hate to say it, but like mostly like white males, like in Central America working at or in Central United States working at your firm, and you identify as like not that, right? Like, so some people get nervous about that, and they ask
Mm-hmm.
me to change it, and I always do. I wish they would think about that. It is a little bit of like a thing, like it does require a little bit of manual work, but like, again, that's me upholding my part of the bargain, right? So yeah, it's been this like really good kind of like community thing where it's like, I help you, I have this business that I'm working on that like needs this, but at the same time, like I offer this like great service and I promise you it will remain free and available. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, and for anybody that hasn't been there, you go to Big Four with the number four transparency.com, and right on the landing page, contribute your information. It says this data source is only as good as you make it. Together we can crowdsource the ultimate tool for earning transparency in the industry. All data is 100% anonymous and abides by privacy policy. Any data submission will be added to the publicly viewable data file. And there's a bunch of different information. It's really interesting. A lot of great information. If you're in that public accounting space, head over to their website, give that information. It'll make the world of accounting better for yourself and for all those that still need to come. It's really such a cool concept. I really love it. You're doing great things.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But what's the big plan? What are your short-term goals for transparency?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not giving too much away. Unlikely my employer will get this far into it, but I am sort of working towards a world where this becomes my full-time gig. And what that looks like is kind of like expanding this to more and more firms. I had a day off last week. I did some cold calling, and like, you only get answering machines basically and receptionists, most of whom are super sweet. So shout out to them. But then like I only got to talk to two people who were like decision makers at firms, and both of them were like, this is great. Can I have a demo, please? Like this seems great, right?
Okay.
So it's very obvious that firms really are in need of something better than what's out there. And so like that's very clear business validation for me. Like I contractually can't say who, but I work with one of the big four firms who like wanted to be ahead of the curve, like in Canada. Like there is demand for this. It's just been like really difficult to get in. Like accountants are very kind of risk averse. And I think like very cost conscious too. So this is something like it has to be less than kind of what's out there in terms of cost.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I mean, first of all, limits, like I'm not in a place where I can get 5 customers and I can support my life. But yes, I'm really like actively trying to kind of transition this into more of a full-time thing. This is my first time sort of publicly saying that, but anyways, yeah. So I'm that's kind of the number one. Number two is like, I do have all these kind of like crazy ideas of like other things that I think would be really, really good for the accounting community without like giving too much away, but like things that like could help people like take pride in our profession. And like there's a lot out there, or like collaborating with like a bunch of partners and like coming up with like a playbook of like, what did it take you to get here? These are all kind of like distant future things. Like in the immediate future, though, it would really, really be like, keep building this thing out in terms of like the data business, get in front of more CPAs, like help more professionals like get access to data. There's a little bit of a recruiting play where I have like a talent pool. I pay people $1,000 if they get a placement through me. And then on the other side, I have relationships with recruiters who can kind of fish from that pond. And we have an understanding that like, they need to pay me to pay the candidate $1,000, and I get a little cut as well of like what they get on the fee. So I'm looking to expand that, and then just kind of keep expanding the media side of things. Like the podcast has grown massively in like 3 months. It's actually like pretty surprising. Like podcasts don't get like that big that fast, but like compared to what I've heard, I'm really, really happy with the numbers so far. So just kind of keep scaling that out, and again, try to reach more and more people. But the core of this business is always going to be the data, right? Is get it into more accounting firms. I'm trying to kind of work on like ways to automate it a little bit more where I can go and reach smaller firms. Because right now, like I've had like a minimum kind of cost structure where I'm like, hey, like, unless you were like my first 1 or 2 customers, like I'm not trying to go below like 2,000 USD annually. But like there's a lot of like 4-person firms who could use help but aren't willing to necessarily pay that. And so there's like a little bit of cost structure thing that I'm trying to work out to go and reach smaller firms, and I price it based on firm sizing and like customization of service and all that. So it goes quite a bit higher than that as well. But it's really all around the data, right? Like firms need access to that, and on the individual side, like the best service I can offer the individual is like better visualizations on the data. Like I'm trying to improve the website. I'm not a developer, and I've built everything 100% myself. Wow. Which has been its own journey. Like product improvements are slow, but like they are coming. I acquired like a predictive data business, like very, very small, but some student had like built some algorithm that, basically it used kind of predictive algorithms to like, you could just enter what your situation is, and it would say like, based on our data, like here's what you should be getting paid. So I acquired that. So that's like a product I'm kind of like working on integrating. Again, I'm just not a developer and I don't have a ton of budget for them. So it's slow work, but it's coming. So yeah.
That's great. That's a lot of amazing news.
Thank you.
Really exciting times ahead. Dominic, you've obviously had some success, but would you be able to share some advice that you received early on in your career that helped you towards your path and being successful?
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's very quotable, but I feel like this is like a Ray Dalio thing. But I feel like radical transparency, I think, is like really important in terms of like being very like authentic. And like I have often, to my own detriment, like told people like, hey, this stuff you're asking me to do, like I hate it. And like obviously like you need to massage that a little bit, but like I have really like always over communicated, and like that has really gotten me in trouble sometimes. But like I think it has also really helped me kind of like find my way and find my fit and have very like honest and earnest conversations with people around like, maybe this isn't for you, or like other people who've kind of communicated like that have kind of like helped lead you that way. So I think like, again, you need to be careful when it's like your employer. So like maybe not them, but like being really honest with people about like what it is you like, what it is you're looking for. And just like being really authentic. Like I have kind of categorically refused to like try to like fit into the mold of like a Big 4 accountant. And you know what, like long term, even if I had stayed, I think that would have paid off. Like I had a number of partners who were very interested in me just because of kind of like the business development sort of side that they saw. And that was just like constantly being like pushed back, and people are like, no, you can't do that, you can't do that, or like that's not what you should be focused on. And I think that would have served me well even if I had stayed. I think I just would have had a couple miserable years in between. But like I think you don't need to like subject yourself to the mold of like where you're entering. Like you can do things your way, and if it doesn't fit, like that's not on you to change. I think it's on you to go find somewhere where like that will fit a little bit. I think that's really been it for me. Like I have like, in certain jobs, like become very anxious and like very like just not well where I was. And every time it was again, because, before I had realized like this is not what I should be doing. And if you are that person where like you really struggle to find that like with an employer, maybe entrepreneurship is like the avenue for you. And it gets glamorized so much on media and it's all like such BS that like I hate to kind of like advise people that, but like it is like you need to find kind of your path, right? Like
Yep.
and for me, I think that that's kind of what it is. Who knows? My alternative was maybe I need to try tech sales or something. But like it's like where you just find like you're always butting up against the limits of your role. Don't let that stop you, right? Go and find the thing where you get to do that, right? So
Yeah.
and for a lot of people, for the record, like that has been staying at the firm. Like
Yeah.
I know people who like have stayed and they're like, yeah, this is great. I
Yeah.
love it. I'm awesome at it. It suits me, right? So don't feel a pressure to be like, I need to go see what else is out there. Like if you're super happy, that's awesome. You hit it on your first try, right? But
Yeah.
for other people, like just don't limit yourself. Try things out, and eventually you'll find what you like. So yeah.
Yeah. What I'm going to pull from that thread is be honest with yourself. I think there's way too
Yeah.
many people out there who's just not honest with themselves. They're like, oh, this is great, but they're going home every night and downing a bottle because they're hating every moment of their lives, actually. So
Yeah.
important to be honest with yourself. Sort of a
Yeah.
follow-on question that might be a little bit of the same, but it's what advice do you have for accountants coming into the industry right now? The new fresh ones that are all excited, they've just come out of college, they're getting started. What advice do you have for those new starters?
One of them is advocate for yourself. I have built this tool. Like I'm one of the things I'm proudest of with Big Four transparency is that like people come to me and they go like, hey, I checked on this, like I'm being like violently underpaid compared to what I should be. What do I do? Or like so many people like will get themselves into a situation where like their teams make them miserable and they'll just end up writing off the whole profession. And I think like as a CPA or EA or just kind of like person operating in this world, like there's a lot of good out there, and just don't let like one bad experience like necessarily get you down, but also don't stay in that experience. This whole talk about like pipeline shortage and talent shortage, like that's your golden ticket. Like you have a lot more power than you might think. Again, don't barge into the partner's office at EY and say like, I demand this. Be reasonable, but like you have a lot more kind of leverage than you think, and you are now, for maybe the first time in a little while, like a very in demand like professional, which is super cool. um and so yeah, like don't be scared to like get out there, don't be scared to like like venture out, try new things. Like for me, like I think if I got laid off or whatever, if I was like in a bad situation, I could probably get a Big Four job in 2 weeks, right?
Mhm.
Like that will be there for you, or like some other firm role, like that will be there for you, and go out and explore. I was always really worried that like industry, trying out an industry role would always be a what if for me. And so I was just like, you know what, I'm going to go out and do it, because I could always come back, and otherwise I'm just going to regret it forever. And I think that trying an industry role, even if I were to go back to tax, would make me so much better at what I did, because now I understand this other perspective. So like, don't be afraid, like try new things. And the best way to find the best things to try is like put yourself out there. Like a lot of people might be introverted, so there's other ways to do this. Like I loved like a good networking event, a wine and cheese, like whatever that is,
Mhm.
which is ironic. I'm super allergic to cheese, but a wine and wine.
Yep.
Like get out there, try things. If that's not your bag, like meet other introverted accountants like online in chat rooms, like get on Reddit, get on Fishbowl, just like somehow find your tribe and like have conversations with them, or even just like listen to podcasts. But like find out what's out there, because there is such a world that like you don't know about. There's so many fantastic people that like, again, people in super high up positions where I am have no idea who any of these people are, because they haven't like ingrained themselves in that community. And I think it's really easy to miss out if you haven't done that. So yeah, that's my advice.
Yeah, great advice. Believe in yourself. take some risks, and find
Yeah.
your tribe. I like those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dominic, this has been really great. I always like to find out a little bit about people on the personal side, outside of the profession. Is there anything
Yeah.
that you can share about your personal life that would give us a glimpse into who you are on a day-to-day basis?
That's funny. Yeah, it's funny. Like I'm really, and this will align with a lot of what I've said, but like I really struggle to get things done. Like if I'm not interested, if I'm not like into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's like driven me towards a lot of like interests. Like what does my day to day look like? Honestly, right now is like get home from work, try to do some sort of physical activity, and then like work on Big Four transparency. So honestly, like this has been like a really big part of my life. I have a great partner. She's super understanding. She's very like happy about kind of my ambitions with this stuff, which is great as well. And I'm super lucky for that. And yeah, like just find ways to like manage stress or just like the day to day. And I really fell off the fitness wagon during COVID. That was a huge part of my life. So I'm really trying to get back into that. I'm a terrible golfer, but I'm like, I really hope to break 100. Like hopefully this year, we'll see. It's not off to a good start. But like, just get out there, be social. Like, I definitely, I'm trying to like rebuild those healthy habits, balance a business, a job, friends, and a relationship. So I got my hands full, but I love every part of what I do. So yeah.
Well, you sound super motivated. You sound happy, and those are important. So that's great. Great to hear that. Dominic, I really appreciate the conversation today.
Thanks for having me.
Our pretty conversations, we like to end with some rapid fire. So I do have 5 questions for you if you're ready.
Sure. I've been going on and on, so I'll keep these quick.
Number 1, what would your death row meal be?
I like that. A lot of pastries. So I'm allergic to dairy, but like dairy-free versions of pastries. There's like a donut shop near me that would be included. There's a vegan cinnamon bun place in Ottawa that I love that would be included. And just like some like waffles, like it's just like full of pastries basically. Yeah.
Just carb it out and head off happy.
Yeah.
Great. Number 2, do you prefer the mountains or the ocean?
Lately, the ocean. So yeah, I'll say the ocean. More calming. Like I love kind of the breeze. I love like, it feels more social to me for some reason. Like, yeah, I'll say the ocean.
Great. What is a quality you appreciate the most in a friend?
This is a weird one, but it's something that I like reflected on recently. It's when people like really genuinely, authentically can like root for you. I see a lot of like other friend groups where there's like this weird tension and like there's like a lot of like jealousy. And I've been like so lucky that like I genuinely feel like I'm surrounded by people who like, hey, this huge thing happened. Like, hey, I signed this huge firm to Big Four transparency, and they're like really pumped for me, and they're like, awesome. Like, are we doing something to celebrate? Like, what's going on? And I see sometimes other people like they surround themselves where it's like, oh, like that's cool, and like there's this weird tension. I think the most important thing is like, yeah, just people who are going to be like happy to kind of see you win, and vice versa, people who you can be happy to see win. Yeah.
Find your tribe, right?
Yeah.
Is there a book that you would recommend people should read?
I have kind of 2. Yeah. These are like super boring recommendations, but Buy Back Your Time. I've been working with this really great business coach, Graham Barlow, and he like swears by this book and he recommends it to people. This is like if you find yourself very like overwhelmed in life, and there's a lot of kind of like concepts in it that like aren't necessarily just for entrepreneurship, like silly things like why are you mowing your lawn if you hate mowing your lawn and you do this, right? If you love mowing your lawn, that's fine. That's very like practical. Another one, I don't know why this marked me so much. I read it so long ago, but it's called Habits. And it's like understanding how habits are formed kind of like in your brain. And there's like a mental loop. And there's a lot of like marketing tie-ins and stuff like that. And I don't know why that book like has stuck with me, but it really, really has. So yeah, if you're looking for a leisurely read, I'll give another rec on that is The Silk Road.
The Silk Road.
The story of Ross Ulbright. I found that was like the coolest thing I've ever read. Yeah.
Great. Lots of wonderful reads there.
Yeah.
Last question. If you're stuck on a deserted island, what 3 items would you bring along with you?
Oof. I mean, a laptop. No,
That's an acceptable answer. This is
Is
your
it?
game.
Okay, you know what? I would say like a laptop. Like I love like listening to stuff like podcasts, like things like that. Like being connected to like people in some way, shape, or form, like to me is huge. I would bring like a musical instrument. I got really, really out of playing music. Just not enough time in the day, but I used to like really like playing guitar and ukulele. I feel like ukulele is like a good fit for like a deserted island.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I feel like some like skill or like something I could do, like I don't know, like kettlebells or something, like a kettlebell or I don't know, something like that, where I I get a lot of like mental comfort out of being like I have this one thing that is in the back of my mind and I like need to be getting better at
Mm-hmm.
like any given moment. And I have found that like times in my life where I've like been really anxious is because I'm like I don't have like this thing that I'm progressing on or progressing towards. So just like like it's something stupid, but like something that I could like quantitatively, improve on. So, let's like call it a kettlebell and be like, I'll do kettlebell swings and I'll do one more every day or something. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
And with that, we end another Protea Conversations. Thank you for joining us in this journey of learning and inspiration. Today, we've gained insights from our guests and taken another step towards understanding the diverse tapestry of leadership in business and accounting. Remember, each conversation is a step towards the positive transformation of business leaders. We hope our discussion has given you valuable takeaways to apply in your own career and life. Don't forget to subscribe to Protea Conversations on YouTube and Spotify so you never miss an episode. We also love to hear your thoughts and experiences, so connect with me on social media channels. I'm most active on LinkedIn and would love you to join the conversation. Join us next time for more engaging stories, advice, and conversations that matter. Until then, keep striving for excellence, embracing growth. Thank you for listening. Be kind, and goodbye from Protea Conversations.